Creature Commandos is finally here, starting an all-new chapter for DC under James Gunn, and you can definitely feel James Gunn's creative hand in a Suicide Squad-esque team of unlikely characters banding together, and his signature gore and humour. I've seen criticism from people who think that this means Gunn will just replicate this tone for projects like Superman and more, but I really don't think that's the case. Creature Commandos was made before James Gunn had control of DC, so he was likely just trying to continue on with his lineage of shows like Peacemaker and give fans what they expect from a James Gunn story. Gunn has made clear that variety is important to his new DC, so I don't think Creature Commandos is necessarily the basis for new stories. However, it is the starting point for his universe, which is very exciting. If you liked Gunn's work on the Suicide Squad and Peacemaker, I think Creature Commandos is for you. I liked that the show wasn't completely action-packed. I mean, it has its moments as a piece of comic book media, but there's also plenty of reflection and small interactions. It's the unique characters that are propelling the story, despite not being a drama. Flashbacks do a good job of fleshing out characters despite a short runtime, and overall I think the show was paced very well. The Bride of Frankenstein's historical pastime was a really creative part of the show that I loved. It kind of reminded me of when we would see flashbacks of Spike's Victorian days in Buffy. There's no denying the show is very confident in its identity, and that's something we've not had for DC consistently. Hopefully it's a new standard going forwards. It's a starting place for a new cinematic universe to unfold, reviving Superman, and so on. With Peacemaker Season 2 and the Lantern series upcoming, Gunn's DCU has officially begun, and that's very exciting. James Gunn is one of my favourite directors, from Guardians of the Galaxy to Peacemaker. His work is just full of energy, carving an entertaining identity. So the fact that James Gunn is now in creative control of DC sits very well with me. Gunn is a huge comic book fan and he embraces all the weird aspects of comic book lore, the less known characters that have lots of potential. He's not afraid to alienate the audience a little to tell a great story, and I think that kind of confident mentality is very refreshing. It's going to allow the new DC to have a very distinct flavour and help DC stand out against Marvel. I'm a huge fan of DC characters, but DC has had lots of problems. DC had success in its early days through Batman and Superman, but the franchise never managed to carve out an interconnected universe of films like Marvel. The successful entries largely remain standalone, and despite trying to revive popular characters, such reboots never lasted. Sometimes our films have been hits, but they've quickly fizzled out of existence. So to say DC has been inconsistent is an understatement. Never creating a cohesive, well-thought assembly of films, in contrast to the steady, stable entertainment at Marvel. DC has never retained a sense of identity. Over decades, Marvel has built up a thriving cinematic universe. With Marvel Entertainment, you know what you're getting into, and most of the films are at least entertaining action flicks. However, many DC projects have felt like there's no real plan, testing all sorts in hopes of success, desperately trying to match Marvel. DC has superheroes with plenty of potential, and with a stable creative lead, I want to love new DC projects again. Have that same sense of security Marvel holds. Though Gunn is rebooting DC, there are some holdovers. Peacemaker will continue on into the new DC canon, Amanda Waller won't be recast, and Matt Reeves' Batman universe will remain in a separate timeline. This might be a little confusing for people, but I think it's well worth it. Peacemaker Season 1 was great, Viola Davis is solid as Waller, and Matt Reeves' Batman content is masterful. So it will allow his Batman timeline to continue, and for James Gunn to eventually create his own Batman for DC. One that will likely be less grounded and more unusual, something I think we've not seen successfully from Batman in a while, but I'm sure Gunn can pull it off. Gunn's Batman will be taking inspiration from The Brave and the Bold, a comic which notably highlights Robin. I think that says a lot about where Gunn will be taking Batman, and I'm so happy that we'll finally see Robin realized in live action alongside Batman, giving him someone to really work with beyond Alfred. There's a lot of mentorship which Gunn can explore through Batman that will feel completely new. Batman has had many different interpretations, but the style that stuck is realism. I don't think there's anything wrong with Batman's campier outings like Batman 89, but the reason they didn't work is not because they were lighthearted, but simply because they were childish. It felt like films that expected fans to like them when they took nothing seriously. And James Gunn will take Batman seriously, but I imagine he'll feel free to show us the more unrealistic elements and characters. There's no denying that Batman has shown success in realism, but that's not the only way to adapt the character. Creatives should be allowed to put their spin on the character, and I'm confident Gunn will shake Batman up for good. However, the first film to grace the DCU will be Superman, and frankly, I think that's perfect. Superman is immediately recognisable, and I think that kind of star power will feel fitting for DC's first chapter. I absolutely love Superman, such an uplifting, heroic character, but he's not had a good adaptation since Superman 2 of what I've seen, and I desperately miss seeing him in live action. Superman isn't the easiest character to pull off, but if James Gunn can pull off a refreshing yet optimistic Superman story, I think it will really cement his new DC in a huge way, giving him a lot of credibility going forwards. From there, he can really flesh out the DC universe with more underrated characters and create a buffet table of DC projects for fans to anticipate. Gunn's Superman is to take inspiration from comics like All-Star Superman and Superman for All Seasons. I don't have experience with All Seasons, but All-Star was an excellent comic. It involves Superman overdosing on solar energy and grappling with death, but it also has a lot of heartwarming moments that capture Superman's character. It's very much a comic that says farewell to Superman, so I don't think Gunn will take inspiration from that, but rather the optimistic tone it held. Gunn has made clear his love of Superman 78, claiming it's a favourite of his. And that's something I love to hear, because I grew up on the Reeve films and they get a lot right about the character. At least the first two do. If Gunn can capture that tone but modernise Superman, I think we're in good hands. It's not as easy as it sounds. Superman Returns attempted to continue on from 78, but the film had lots of issues and never got a sequel. The main antagonist seems to be Lex Luthor, played by Nicholas Hoult, and that is going to be interesting, because Lex has become a bit stale, so hopefully this Lex is more of a mad scientist type character of the comics than a goofy Bond villain. He does seem to be like a billionaire type, which is promising. Like the Joker, I think Lex Luthor has the tendency to be overused in Superman stories. There is no denying he's a great foil for Superman, but we see him far too much, so hopefully this Lex is refreshing, something Superman Returns failed to achieve. Creatively, I'm ready to expand and see villains like Brainiac oppose Superman, as opposed to the same popular foe in constant repetition. And I'm sure Lex is only a stepping on point to more unique villains. We've also seen other heroes on set, which seems to indicate that Superman will introduce a lot of DC characters to jump off into their own projects, perhaps establishing a unity like the Justice League early on. Superman 78 was not only a great film, but it also had excellent casting. Christopher Reeve, Margot Kidder, everyone embodied their role beautifully. Superman and Lois's chemistry has been done so well in the past, and there's going to be a lot of comparison when we see our newest iterations in Superman. Gunn has praised David Corenswet as a great physical actor, so we'll just have to wait and see. But from what I've seen in the Superman trailer, everything's looking great so far. Not only is Gunn going to be tackling Superman, but he's also going to be bringing Supergirl into the mix, a character who's never been served well on screen. The Supergirl film was a mess, and Supergirl was okay, but it was a CW show, nothing groundbreakingly good. Supergirl isn't just an extension to Superman, she's a worthy character in her own right. Supergirl has the exact same potential for great stories as Superman, so hopefully we get a good film that respects the character and differentiates itself from Superman. She's not a character who should be defined by Superman and should have her own distinct history. You don't want to feel like you've cloned the same character, so Gunn will have to be careful, but I think involving Supergirl is a great move, because then it just allows for more complexity down the line, involving Superman and Supergirl like in the comic books, giving the two Kryptonian lineage beyond Jor-El. The two have the potential to bounce off each other in a great way, and as a duo it will allow them to both have a strong sense of family beyond Earth. There's also plans for Wonder Woman to be realised on screen in a TV show. It's set to involve her Amazonian history on Themyscira, which sounds like it has lots of potential as a kind of Game of Thrones-esque kingdom, highly different from the standard superhero stories we've got from Wonder Woman more recently. Whereas origin stories are often quickly skipped through to get to the action, Wonder Woman's Amazonian history does lend itself to more depth, and the show could slowly build to Wonder Woman departing the city. Furthermore, we have confirmation of a Green Lantern series, which sounds very intriguing. Gunn has described it to be similar to that of True Detective, involving a more grounded tale revolving around an important mystery. It seems it will utilise the lanterns in an interesting way, and they're characters which I'm pretty unfamiliar with, which makes me even more excited. I love a good mystery, and blending that with Green Lantern shenanigans is creative. A lot of the news just cements that James Gunn is trying to create a sense of variety going forwards, with projects that feel distinct yet will interconnect. This has just been a quick overview on DC's slate and its future. Importantly, I think we're in for a lot of good content to come. Feel free to share your thoughts down below. If you would like to support the channel, please consider supporting Patreon. Links are in the description below. I would like to give a special thank you to Starfleet Sohail, who supports me on Patreon. You can find him at Starfleet Sohail on YouTube and Twitter. But most importantly, thank you for watching. It really means a lot.